All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely flip the script on astrobiology. We're stepping way outside the cozy boundaries of our own planet to explore the breathtaking, glowing world of Decima and its neon-based inhabitants. Seriously, if you think you know what life looks like, you might want to buckle up, because prepare to have your mind completely blown. But before we meet our main subject, a fascinating entity named Kyne, we've got to drop our earthly biases. We need to embrace a fundamental, totally paradigm-shifting definition of what it actually means to be alive. Forget about cells and water for a second. At its absolute core, life is simply a localized reversal of entropy. It's the persistence of complex information. Essentially, it's a pattern that remembers itself against the incredibly chaotic backdrop of the universe. Keep this exact definition in mind, because it is the absolute key to understanding everything we're about to look at. So here's our xenobiologist's field guide for today. We'll be looking at the arrogance of carbon, the anatomy of a flame, the electrodynamic sensorium, the language of light, the stellar storm, and finally, defeating cosmic entropy. Let's get right into it. Starting with part 1, the arrogance of carbon and our historically narrow lens. You see, for literally millennia, astrobiology has viewed the universe through this really narrow, watery lens. We've completely dismissed noble gases, like neon, as just being inert and sterile. No way could they support life, right? Well, terrestrial life is wet, it's fragile, and it's bound by carbon molecules. But Deciman life, it operates on a radically different playbook. We're talking electrodynamic plasma, invisible electromagnetic fields, an ionized neon gas deep within the Rosette Nebula. It's a reality where physics completely takes over the exact second chemistry fails. To put that into perspective, the temperature of Decima's upper exosphere is 10,000 Kelvin. That's blistering. Under those extreme conditions, intense ultraviolet radiation literally strips the electrons right off of the neon, turning it into this swirling, supercritical plasma soup. Now, you'd think an environment like that would instantly destroy life, but as we're going to see, it's actually the very crucible that creates it. Moving to part 2, anatomy of a flame and the structure of Kyne. We're going to examine the physical structure of our subject, Kyne. Kyne is a singular consciousness, literally born of lightning and dust, spanning roughly 300 meters in length. Imagine something the size of a skyscraper. But here is the truly wild part. Kyne doesn't have physical skin. There's no cell wall, no biological membrane at all. Instead, its body is a localized, self-sustaining magnetic bottle, drifting weightlessly along Decima's equatorial jet stream. It is quite literally a creature of pure, luminescent beauty and structured energy. So how does this entity actually function? Well, at the core, you have the scaffolding. These are microscopic silicate dust grains blown in from the nebula, and they self-organize via electromagnetic tension to form evolving, replicating genetic code. No chemistry required. Then you've got the mantle, which is this swirling cloud of ionized neon-20 acting as the metabolic medium. For fuel, Kyne siphons raw kinetic energy straight out of the stellar winds, and its breath, it excites and releases neon electrons to emit this brilliant glowing light. It breathes kinetic energy and literally eats the momentum of the solar wind. How crazy is that? Let's look at part 3, the electrodynamic sensorium and navigating chaos. To survive the chaotic tides of that exosphere, Kyne needs to be hypersensitive to its surroundings, and its senses put our basic, localized human senses to absolute shame. It uses an instantaneous three-dimensional sensorium. First up is Lorentzian kinesthesia. This allows Kyne to physically feel the friction and pull of magnetic lines, kind of like how you and I feel gravity. Then there's Debye mapping, which lets it bounce oscillations off distant storms. Think of it as echolocation or sonar, but with virtually infinite precision. And finally, spectroscopic resonance. Kyne literally tastes and smells the isotopic purity of incoming light across a massive, omnidirectional choir of electromagnetic frequencies. Which brings us to part 4, the language of light and plasma communication. So, you might be wondering, how do creatures made of pure plasma actually talk to each other? Well, they interact using acoustic plasma waves and the absolutely magnificent manipulation of their own emission spectra. Essentially, they form a biological fiber optic network. By subtly compressing its internal magnetic fields, Kyne invokes what's called the Stark effect. It rapidly modulates its glow, flashing brilliant vermilion and bright yellow, to broadcast impossibly dense, complex messages in microsecond intervals to its kin, like its neighbor, Vesperflux. They aren't using words, they are literally painting with light and energy. And when things get urgent, they escalate to phase locking. This is the intimate synchronization of internal electron spin patterns between two of these entities. By extending a plasma tendril, Vesperflux and Kyne blur the boundaries between their own minds, creating this temporary, localized hive mind. And it's through this transcendent connection that Vesperflux transmits a terrifying, raw experience directly into Kyne's consciousness. A massive perturbation is coming. This leads us right into part 5, the stellar storm, the ultimate threat. The Great Radiator, which is the nearby O-type star, has erupted. A coronal mass ejection, known to them as the flux scale, is hurtling toward Decima at thousands of kilometers per second. This is the ultimate threat. We're talking extreme ultraviolet radiation and relativistic protons that threaten to completely overwhelm the delicate Coulomb forces holding these entities together. Caught right between the crushing neutral argon of the lower atmosphere and the lethal stellar wind bearing down from above, these individual neon entities are facing total dissolution, the complete shredding of their magnetic bottles, and the scattering of their dust DNA. To survive this onslaught, Kyne acts as a focal point, rising above the colony to initiate what's called the resonance conclave maneuver. First, Kyne sings a massive, low-frequency alpha wave to set a structural rhythm. Second, thousands of its kin phase lock and synchronize with that exact frequency. Third, together they actually weave their bodies into a planetary-scale hexagonal plasma lattice. And fourth, they spin that entire megastructure to create a massive magnetic dynamo effect. Basically, they build a diamagnetic shield capable of deflecting the stellar wind. But absorbing a violent shockwave like that requires a lethal dance of thermodynamics known as the cascade. Trillions of high-energy protons smash into the woven minds of the neon reef. And the physics here, absolutely brutal. Entities that fail to maintain their spin under that immense pressure lose their coherence. Their magnetic bottles just pop. In sudden flashes of blue-white brush-strummeling radiation, they simply cease to be. Their ancestral memory is vaporized in an instant, while Kyne and the survivors have to stretch agonizingly thin to close up the gaps in the shield. Finally, Part 6, defeating cosmic entropy through survival and rebellion. After 3 agonizing planetary rotations of enduring this brutal siege, the pressure finally eases. The sweeping, godlike consciousness of that meta-organism decouples, and a battered, deeply depleted Kyne returns to its solitary self. But guys, this right here is the true rebellion of life. While carbon-based life forms, like us, hide behind thick atmospheres and oceans, Kyne and its kin actively wear the energy of the cosmos. Kyne draws in pristine neon gas, realigns its fractured silicate scaffolding, and restores its core algorithm. It proves that life, in whatever impossible form it takes, is the universe's most beautiful and deliberate rebellion against thermodynamic decay. Broadcasting a triumphant, deep crimson beacon to the decimated but surviving wreath, Kyne's light casts this eternal message of resilience into the infinite dark. We are the geometry of